I'm Jonah Larkin, and in today's video, I'm going to show you 3 strategies to supercharge and speed up habit creation by understanding brain anatomy and a little bit of neuroscience. But before we dive in, I'd like to ask you to please subscribe to my channel. It helps these videos get in front of more people who might need this information. So habits are by definition unconscious, meaning we don't have to think about them when we do them. So if you've ever found yourself splayed out on your couch, mindlessly scrolling through Instagram, then you know what I mean. We have to understand the difference between the conscious and unconscious mind to really figure out what's going on. So the conscious mind, for all intents and purposes, is located right behind the forehead, and it's the part of the brain called the neocortex that scientists believe evolved only about 200,000 years ago. And the neocortex is in charge of executive functioning, which includes things like decision making, memory, effort and grit, self-control, and the ability to project your mind into the future. But here's the kicker: the prefrontal cortex operates at the glacially slow pace of about 40 to 120 bits per second, and the entire rest of your brain, which is where your subconscious mind resides, is able to calculate about 40 million bits per second. That's a million times more powerful. So to see how this works, let's say that you want to start working out 5 days a week. You just made that decision in your prefrontal cortex. Now, you're ready to wake up the next day and crush it, but when your alarm goes off the next morning, well, you're kind of tired from staying up too late the night before watching YouTube videos like this. So you grab your phone, and before you know it, you've spent 25 minutes scrolling through social media. And by the time you get out of bed, you realize that the hour you've planned for your workout is down to about 30 minutes. And so you figure, well, today's shot might as well just wait until tomorrow. So do you see what just happened? Your conscious mind got overruled by your unconscious mind, and you sabotage yourself. But before you throw your subconscious mind under the bus, realize that it provides you with a very valuable service. You can think of how challenging it would be to do things like breathe or brush your teeth or ride a bike if you constantly had to think about what you're doing. And the subconscious takes care of this so that you don't have to think about that stuff. But why does this happen? Why do you get caught up doing something that you don't actually want to be doing? And it happens because what is under our conscious control is very, very small. And 95% of what we do moment to moment and day to day is regulated by the subconscious and unconscious. And that's why willpower is such a poor strategy. You can have all the willpower in the world, but if you haven't trained your nervous system and the rest of your mind to get on board when you want to do something, then it will sabotage you because it's a million times more powerful. So what are you supposed to do? Well, you need to get your intentions across the unconscious-conscious barrier. So let's dive into the 3 strategies to get those messages across that divide. Now, a quick word about the time it takes to create a new habit. People say it takes 21 days or 66 days, but the actual time it takes to build a habit is based on its complexity. It can take a year or more for really complicated habits. And the formula it takes to integrate that habit is represented by the complexity of the habit divided by the amount of focus times the number of repetitions. So let me say it in a different way. If you want to make a complex activity habitual, the time it takes depends on how much you can focus on it and how many times you can repeat it. So let's dive into the first strategy, which is focus. Focus works because when your attention becomes fully absorbed in the task at hand, your brain starts to secrete dopamine. And dopamine is a pleasurable neurotransmitter that primes your brain for reward. And it begins to rewire it because neurons that fire together wire together. And what this means is that they begin to myelinate. And myelination is the coating of a neuron by a layer of fat that helps it transmit information 35 to 350 times faster than a non-myelinated neuron. Now, focus falls into 2 categories. Under short-term focus are things you can do right now, And under long-term focus are things that build your focus muscle over time. Now I've built a focus checklist that you can download for free. I've linked to it in the video description. Now the first thing you'll want to do to create focus is have a measurable goal. Creating a goal gives you something concrete to focus on. If you're answering email, you might want to shoot for 50 emails, getting through those. If you're writing, you might strive for 500 words, or meditating, you might go for 3 breaths. It really doesn't matter what the goal is as long as it's clear and quantifiable. Secondly, you want to eliminate all distractions. Put your phone in airplane mode, make sure it's out of arm's reach, and even better is to turn it off completely. I make sure to go to the bathroom, have some water next to me, and I tell anyone else that's around, hey, I'm in focus mode, don't mess with me. And I like to use a Pomodoro timer where I work in 25-minute sprints followed by a 5-minute break. Now, having a clean environment, I also find very calming, so I generally pick up for a few minutes as well. And you can add some music, which can help with focus and attention. I'm a fan of deep house, I know, but hey, whatever works for you. And let's not forget the power of drugs. And by drugs, I mean things like caffeine and other nootropic substances. And in fact, caffeine has been shown to increase your ability to pay attention. But my advice is to use caffeine strategically rather than habitually, because it really can yield incredible productivity benefits when you use it sparingly. Now, I've also experimented with things like high-dose fish oil, nicotine gum, lion's mane, and other nutritional interventions, but experiment. You might find something that works really great for you. So those strategies will get you focused in the short term, but long-term focus strategies is really about building a new brain, and it's a bit like getting in shape. The more fitness you have, the longer you'll be able to perform at an activity, and just like your body, you can train your brain. Now, hands down, the best method for building the focus muscle is meditation. Long-term meditators outperform novices in terms of their ability to pay attention, ignore distractions, pick up on subtleties that the untrained mind simply would never notice. Now, I know that having a consistent meditation practice can seem intimidating, but the key is to start small and start now. There's just no time like the present, right? And if you'd like to start a practice but are feeling some trepidation, check out some of my videos on the habit quadrant, or you can join my free self-guided 7-day morning rhythm quick start challenge, which again, I've linked to in the video description. So now that we've dealt with focus, let's get to strategy number 2, which is novelty. Your brain is evolutionarily programmed to seek novelty because our ancestors needed to be aware of what was in their environment so they could survive. And remember dopamine? Seeking and exploratory behavior is driven by that neurotransmitter. And because it not only tells your brain to pay attention, it drives you to seek reward. So scrolling through your phone until you can find a notification or update is driven by dopamine. But you might notice that after you've seen your like count on your latest post, then you're primed to seek the next reward. And as you and I have both experienced, this can become a never-ending phone loop of addiction. But instead of hijacking your dopamine system so Facebook can sell you ads, you can use the system to create new habits faster. And since up to 95% of our waking hours are spent doing, thinking, and feeling in habitual ways, just a little tweak here and a little tweak there can set the mind to be more open to novelty. So here's a couple of ideas to get you started. If you're brushing your teeth, try doing it with the other hand. If you're driving to the grocery store, take a different route this time. Ordering dinner at a restaurant, well, try something you've never tried before. If you wear a watch or jewelry, put it on the opposite wrist. If you read fiction, try some nonfiction, and vice versa. If you watch movies, try a documentary one night. So just mix things up. You can also work to create novelty around your new habit. So you can use things like smell, essential oils, sound, music, go to new locations like a coffee shop or maybe just your kitchen, or give yourself an occasional reward when you perform your habit. So start to see how this works. You're essentially priming your brain to look for novelty in difference and therefore increasing your dopamine levels. This helps you learn and integrate far faster than you normally would. Which brings us to our third strategy, which is repetition. Now, if you do an activity enough, two things will happen. First, your neurons in the brain will begin to develop that thick layer of myelination, which helps data flow faster through your neurons. It's really a win-win situation. And secondly, the habit or behavior will get programmed into a deep brain structure called the basal ganglia. Now, the basal ganglia is pretty incredible because habits get programmed into it even without conscious control. A quick story to illustrate. In 1993, an elderly man named Eugene Pauly was rushed to the emergency room with a viral illness, and 10 days later, when he woke up from the coma, the virus had destroyed parts of his temporal lobe, and he no longer had the ability to form new long-term memories. And before he got sick, he had gone for a daily walk, but when he moved to a new house, if his wife wasn't with him, he'd find himself back at his old house, and it was becoming a real problem. And then something strange happened. He started finding himself back at his new house after he went out on a walk, even without his wife. And when he was asked if he knew where his house was, he said he didn't know. So how did he find his way back? What scientists discovered was the function of the basal ganglia. It can store and learn procedural memories simply based on repetition, and that's why repetition is so important. Michael Jordan, when he was playing, would take 1,000 to 2,000 jump shots every single day in practice. So by the time he got to any place on the court, he'd already taken tens of thousands of shots there and could literally do it unconsciously. So once you meditate enough, work out enough, write enough, or brush your teeth enough, you'll begin to do those things without any conscious effort. Now, the only problem with repetition is that it takes a bunch of time. But here's a little secret that athletes use to short circuit the need for endless repetition, and that is visualization. The more you're able to visualize something in detail before you do it, the more likely you are to do it and do it well. And I think Michael Phelps is probably the best example of this. Visualization was literally built into his training and pre-meet routines, and he would visualize every last detail of the race. And he actually proved this out in a world championship when his goggles filled with water, but he'd played out the scenario so many times in his head that he still ended up winning the gold, even though he couldn't even see. So let's do a quick review to make sure you can institute these strategies into your life immediately. Now, the first thing you want to do is increase your focus. And remember, we have short-term and long-term strategies, and we need to prepare in order to focus well. Then we have novelty, which is all about introducing new things, new places, new experiences as a way of increasing dopamine signaling and therefore learning. And then finally, we have repetition, of which visualization is the hack to speed up that process and to use it frequently. So be sure to download the worksheet that I've linked in the description, and please subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, hit that like button if you've benefited from any of this information, or just go about your day. Send me and everyone else good vibes.